Welcome to the last Soar FP MLB show for the season. This is Kevin. I've got Bob here with me. How you doing, Bob?
Doing great, man. Ready for the World Series.
Yeah.
Can't. It's two best teams in baseball. Like this is what it's all about, man.
This is going to be a fun one. Yeah, I mean we'll go into the details as much as possible, but I have no idea what's going to happen. I could see it going anyway. I could see anyone, putting up 10 runs in a game, and anyone, you know, I guess let's start with starting pitchers. How does that sound?
Hey,
Um,
that's the best place to go.
because Garrett Cole kind of came into the season as like a consensus, probably top 3 starting pitcher,
Yep.
and had some injury stuff. Kind of at times looked like normal Garrett Cole, but right now, he's kind of gone between very good starts to not the best start. So, all right, what are your thoughts on Garrett Cole right now?
I'm nervous. This is actually like one of the big decisions that you have to come down to because in the past, in that first season of So Rare, I won the World Series competition, and what I did is I played two starting pitchers. I played Framber Valdez and Zach Wheeler. And that was the 7-game series with the Phillies and the Astros. And both guys got 2 starts, and then I think Wheeler came in for a third or something like that. And so everything just piled up, and it allowed me to just barely scrape out a win. So my past says you want guys that are going to pitch 2 games, right? So the guys that are lined up right now to pitch 2 games are Garrett Cole and Jack Flaherty as the number 1 starters for both teams.
Yeah.
Cole is the guy that I trust a lot more, but as a Yankees fan, I've watched Cole in the playoffs, and he has struggled to get through 5 innings without giving up 3 or 4 or 5 runs, and he's not looked sharp.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, do I think that Cole can be on and avoid the hot bats of Shohei and Mookie and Teoscar and Freddie and Will? Like all of these guys smash the ball, and little mistakes at this level against the Dodgers will destroy your game week. Like we don't need a negative 17 from Flaherty again type of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the tough thing is I think last year or 2 years ago, with the Phillies and Astros, yeah, I think I would have felt comfortable with Wheeler and Framber. They both looked good. They both looked like they were pitching up to their potential.
mhm.
Right now, there's almost no one starting pitching wise that I feel that way about. Flaherty's been the same way, where he um, had a decent start and then a bad one, and he, I think, uh, at least for the past few years, has been one of those guys that has a pretty clear velocity cutoff. So when he's like at or above 94, he's
Mhm.
effective, and when he's under it, he's not. And like the big kind of worry with him that, after his last start was he was down like 2 or 3 miles per hour, and so he was down to like 91 or something.
Yep.
And so yeah, so I don't. That's the hard thing for me is that while 2 starts is great, it's not great if at least one of those starts, you put up a negative 17 like Flaherty did last time. So yeah, so I don't have a good answer for you. I know, at this point, the rare competitions are the one that I've been kind of most focused on. And for rare champion, I only have so many options. And so
Mhm.
I'm starting Garrett Cole um, there, and then I think I've got a Kopech in season reliever, so I'm going with that,
Yep.
and then Luke Weaver, and that's going to be my classic card in the flex spot.
Okay.
And frankly, if I could, I think I might go 3 relievers there, if I could, and I don't think I can.
Mhm.
But you know, I think I think that the both the Yankees and the Dodgers are going to have a pretty good idea of how to best use their relievers. They're going to be put in situations where they're likely to succeed. And again, I mean, even in the best case, when you're pitching against Otani and Betts and Judge and Soto, it's you're always going to struggle at times, even if you got your best stuff. But I think I'd feel a little bit safer with them getting 2 or probably 3 appearances, and being able to do kind of what we would expect them to do. Whereas with the starters, I think at best we're hoping to get 1 good start, right? I mean, I, yeah, I don't know
So
how you put odds on it, but like, what are the odds that Cole puts up 2 wins, 6 innings pitched, and decent, strikeouts and whatnot?
well, I mean, part of this for me comes down to the fact that I'm also a Yankees fan and I'm hard cheering for the Yankees. And like this stuff, well, it does matter, right? So
Yeah,
somebody like Mookie, who's a Dodgers fan, is going to be thinking like, I want Flaherty to start because I think he's going to pitch 2 games, and if I get 2 wins out of my guy, my team is probably going to win the World Series. And that's
right,
how like my brain is going as well. So with Cole, because if the Yankees are going to win the World Series, I think they need Cole to be a stud. And I want the Yankees to win the World Series. So I'm leaning more towards Cole because I'm expecting 2 games of 30 plus from him. You
right,
know, that's what I have to imagine happens, right? Because I could, buy a starting pitcher Kopak and just let it roll out there, and get his 3 or 4 appearances, and he gets 12 points, 15 points every time, end up with 45 and have a great floor kind of play with Kopak, right?
right,
Or you play to win and you try to max out. And I think they're 2 different strategies, right? And you and I are in a very unique position right now as we are trying to hold leads in the monthly chase.
yep,
So the logical part of my brain says probably play Kopak as your starting pitcher and get his 3 or 4 appearances and just get the points on the board and don't take a negative 17 like Flaherty did last game week, right? Like, because I just need to hold on to a lead,
right,
essentially, right? And so that is the logical part of me. And, we may come back and find that Garrett Cole got crushed in both of his appearances and I lost the chase because of it. The Yankees lost the World Series.
yeah,
And that would be devastating. But at the same time, I want, like, the fan in me is coming out, and this is exactly what you don't want to have happen in a game like So Rare. Like you can't think as a fan first when you play this. And that's where I'm struggling a lot, Kev, with the World Series. And I mean, I think DJ Local actually asks a great question. Like, does Rodon have a higher upside with his K percentage than just like in that one appearance? And like honestly, if we expect here's a better question too. So like we're talking about Cole. I don't trust Cole. I don't think you do either after what we've seen.
right,
Right. But I also don't think we trust any starting pitchers in the playoffs right now outside of Rodon. Rodon's been the best pitcher of the teams that are left here that are starters. So Rodon starting game 2, which means that either Cole or Rodon are starting game 4 and game 5 or game 5 and game 6. So I have to assume that this series is going at least 6 is what I'm thinking because they are clearly the 2 best teams in baseball. So does it make more sense to start Rodon? And this is a question that I've been thinking about too, because as it turns out, Kev, like as a Yankees fan, I'm starting Rodon or Cole. The question is, which one? And I can also say it in my head, well, if I start Rodon and it only goes 5 games and he gets 1 win, it means the Yankees won the World Series in 5. And they didn't need to pitch 2. You know what I mean?
right,
So yeah, I mean, because I'm actually leaning more along the lines of what DJ Local is saying also. And like that's where the other added part comes in. Like you want the 2 starts. If it goes long, Rodon's getting a second start. Rodon has the higher K upside. He's been pitching better. Like, can they do that? And I need to actually like look deeper at the splits. Like, who is Shohei going to smash more? Who is Mookie going to smash more? Who is he more
right.
likely to smash more? And off Cole is an opening for back-to-back home runs to lead off the World Series. Like that is chiefly my concern.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I just want to say, um, for anyone that's interested in like digging deep into this stuff, Rates and Barrels this week has done an episode every day, and it's just been a phenomenal kind of insight into all of the stuff about pitching. So they've kind of gone over kind of ranking the best relievers throughout the teams. Kind of talked about how they're thinking that that both teams will use their rotations, and as well as how the schedule is going to play into this. And so, we've got the first two games, Friday, Saturday, the day off, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So, on Saturday, regardless of what happens, in game one, the teams will be fine to use empty their bullpens out. So, as opposed to game 3 and 4, where they've got 1 or 2 more games after that, right afterwards, and so there's going to be issues with that. I think at least the Yankees, I think, probably have decent kind of options to kind of go like starters that would go in essentially long relief, right? They could put Heel in there, but the other thing that they have been looking at that's really, really interesting is the effectiveness of relievers after a hitter's seen them multiple times, kind of in the same way that third time through the order a starting pitcher loses their effectiveness. I think it's actually worse for relievers if a hitter sees them 3 times within in the course of a series. And so so they were kind of looking at, well, all right, so if you've only got 2 times out of Treinen and Kopech and Weaver and Holmes and whoever else you maybe trust, maybe Canely or Phillips, guys like that, kind of how that's all gonna play out. It's you start running into issues. And so to kind of bring it back to Rodon, they were saying he might be the most likely to go long into a game because they're probably going to be more likely to let Ohtani see him 3 times in a start. And so kind of get through that, go into that third time through the order. Whereas, unless Cole is just shoving, it's that he's probably not going to go very deep into a game. And so there's that aspect of it too. But the other kind of strategic part of it is kind of where you're at in the standings, I think, is going to dictate kind of how you're going to play. And so if you're in first place, so for Rare Pro, I'm in first, I'm leading by like 100 points. So I'm probably just going to play the safest plays that I can. Although actually, I don't have enough cards to start 2 full lineups. And so, so I've got right now I'm starting Austin Barnes at middle infielder, I think, and I'll probably pick up a card today to put in there. But for if I'm ahead, I think I want to play as safely as possible, and I think I would probably go with all relievers in that case. I think it's a little bit of a better floor play. Whereas if I am trying to come from behind, I think I'm probably looking to like kind of go all out. So I probably would go Cole, maybe. I think Rodon actually would be a great start. If I agree that I don't think this is a sweep for either team. So I think Rodon definitely gets 2 starts. I think he's going to be one of the better starters. I haven't really looked into Yamamoto, like how what he's looked like other than the games I've listened to or watched, but I'm not sure stat wise kind of like how deep they're going to let him go, how effective he's been and whatnot. So, I mean, he might be an option, but there's that. And then the other side of it is, stars can easily slump, and it doesn't, I mean, I think early in the playoffs, it was like, oh, Mookie's a garbage player. Right. And I think Judge started off a little slow in the postseason too. Right. So, I mean, I think if I was trying to come from behind, even if I had, all the studs, I think that there's probably a good chance that you want to put Muncy and Teoscar and maybe Glaber or Jazz. Wells has been so bad, which sucks because I really like him on the whole. And like for the most part, I think he had a great season. I up and down at times, but like he was getting more and more playing time defensively. He's been pretty good, which I know was some of the concerns with him early on. But yeah, I think it's those other than like you said, I think Stanton's a big one too. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be in every kind of chalk whale lineup. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. And like I said, I think for my rare team, like champion one, I went from leading for most of the playoffs to I think I'm in like 15th or something like that. Now I'm back like 100 points or more. So I don't know that I'm going to catch up, but also I don't have Judge or Soto rares, so by necessity I'm going to be playing some other options. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and it's just a fun part to think about because like the pitching is one thing. Like I actually just made a switch. I think I'm going to go Rodon because I think to your point and what other sites are saying, there's the higher probability of him going deeper into the game, and
Right.
also a probability of them getting 2 starts. And like if the Yankees are in trouble, they would put him in any sort of situation because it's winner take all. They have an entire winter to rest and get healthy. So they're going to abuse Cole. They're going to abuse Rodon. They're going to use Clark Schmidt as much as they need. Same with Heel. And the Dodgers are going to do the same thing. I mean, odds are the Dodgers are going to throw like 3 bullpen games throughout the course of the playoffs because that's just what they do. They don't have more than 2 starting pitchers, really. Walker Buehler came on pitching great last week, but all of these guys are hit or miss. So I think that it's a really good point. And I think that what you were just talking about with Stanton is kind of another decision that you really have to process because I think that there are at the top end of the gallery setups throughout SoRare, there are really 4 guys that you were pretty much starting in every single lineup every single week. And that's obviously Shohei at corner infield, Mookie at middle infield, Soto in the outfield, and Judge. Like those seem to be the 4, right? And so then you have the choice
Yep.
of relief pitcher and then starting pitcher and then another pitcher of some sort or a hitter, right? I think that's the first decision you make. And then the second decision you make is if I go hitter, which hitter am I going with? Because I don't know that there is a difference between Stanton, Teoscar, Will Smith, Muncy, Freeman. Like those are the guys that I have and I'm all pushing together in this for consistency. Like normally I go straight Freeman if I know he's going to play every single game. But
Yeah.
hobbling around and like he probably shouldn't be playing. So that's a big thing to take into account here. Muncy is going to hit some home runs or he's going to strike out a lot. Teoscar has been playing really well throughout the course of the season. In the one series they had in New York, he absolutely smashed. But he's been a little quiet the last couple rounds. So Giancarlo is one of those guys where I'm relatively certain he will strike out 10 times, but he could hit 2 home runs. And they're usually big home runs when it comes down to it. And I don't think that the Dodgers pitching staff is very strong when it really comes down to it. And so, like for me, again, I am a Yankees homer.
Yeah.
I'm going Stanton for the big upside play. I think that there is more probability of an upside play because he either smashes a double or smashes a home run or strikes out. Like he's one of those like 3 sole outcome kind of guys, and like one of those outcomes is walks, and he's not patient enough to walk. So it's strikeout or home run basically. And this again goes against holding a lead. If I want to hold a lead, I'm hitting somebody else. I'm probably just like riding Freddie Freeman out there. Somebody more like it makes it sound like Freddie Freeman's boring. He's one of the best players in the league.
I don't know that I would play Freddie Freeman if I'm trying to hold the lead because I think there's just too much I'd be too worried that he gets pulled from games or isn't able to play or just tweaks it. So yeah.
Yep. And I mean, I'm really curious, and just from watching as well, and this goes back to that, like with hitters, I feel like it's either the American League is not as good as hitting as the National League, or the American League is much better at pitching than the National League in the playoffs. And it could be a combination of both because there's been essentially no pitching in the National League and no hitting in the American League for the most part. And so, like, where are we going to meet?
Right.
And this reminds me, like, this is the kind of thing where you say, like, defense wins championships. You hear that a lot in sports. And I always look back to there was a Super Bowl many, many years ago. It was the Seattle Seahawks against Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. And everyone was betting on the Denver Broncos to absolutely smash because they had historically the best offense in NFL history. And Seattle came out and punched him in the face and ended up blowing them out like 48-6 or something like that with defense. And using that kind of ideology, like I'm thinking, if you can outpitch and you can hit your spots and you can pitch, you can stop hot bats.
Right.
And I mean, I'm relying on the Yankees to pitch well enough to win the game here, to win the World Series, is what it really comes down to. Because I think that you can avoid strategically Juan Soto, you can avoid Judge for the most part. You know, there are going to be ways around it. You're picking up a doogie. Uh-oh.
I think
Danger.
so. Yeah, that was the other when I was kind of going through my head to guys. I was like, I might prefer Verdugo over Jazz.
Mhm.
You know, I love Jazz. Like I'm probably one of the world's biggest Jazz fans.
Yep.
And I do think, I mean, I think the bigger the stage, I think the more he might shine. So
Mhm.
there is that aspect of it, but I'd feel better about it if he was just a little bit hotter. Whereas, you know, Verdugo, great at making contact, right? And so that's one of those things where, especially if the Dodgers, you know, bullpen gets worn down, and if I mean if they end up just needing to walk more of the studs, you know, Verdugo is going to be coming up with guys on base, and if he's coming up with guys on base, all he needs to do is hit a single to get 2 RBIs, and so
Yeah.
um,
Counterpoint though, real
yeah,
quick, Kev. Verdugo has been questionable to even like get the start in the outfield. He's been so bad lately.
yeah,
So, and he's hitting at the bottom of the lineup. So what you're not really looking at driving in runs kind of positions. You're looking at him getting on base so that Soto and Judge can score him sort of positions. Like if you want
yeah,
a guy that can generate runs and RBI, you are going for the Jazz Chisholms of the world who are hitting just behind Stan. You know what I mean? That are going to have guys on base to work with.
right.
That's
Well,
that's kind of how I'm looking at it. And
so what
also
I'm
Rizzo.
picturing. Go ahead. Yeah, Rizzo. Yeah,
Yeah.
is he 100% and playing
I
every
mean,
day?
he's Rizzo. Like he's Anthony Rizzo. Like he's going to be there. Like no matter what happens, he's going to be there. He's going to come up with a clutch base hit here and there. And yeah, I put him on par with like a Will Smith type of play at this point,
Yeah.
honestly.
All right. Yeah. Smith's been kind of up and down too. Oh man. But yeah, I don't feel great about Jazz. I'm thinking right now, what was I looking at? I was thinking maybe playing Muncie over Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um in that spot. I do, like I said, I kind of wish I had somewhere else to go with the outfield spot. So I mean, right now I'd be looking at maybe Teoscar.
Yep.
But then I would need an in-season card there. I'm not sure kind of what the options are for me on the market. I did
So,
just sell. What did I sell? Oh, I won a J-Rod rare, and that just sold for I don't know, like $150 or something. So
so with Weaver, why? So what about Weaver has you questioning? I mean, like so, Weaver is obviously their closer, right?
yeah,
I don't know how closely you've watched the ALCS. Boone will put Weaver in at any given time.
right,
So, like, I don't think he is obviously their closer, but he's just not like only their closer sort of thing. It's kind of like what the Mets did
right,
last series with Edwin Diaz. They put him in the fourth inning
yeah,
to like stem the tide, you know,
yeah.
at the
Or I
time.
mean, or what the Dodgers do a lot of times. Where they,
Yep.
they'll kind of for sure they are they've got plans for what part of the order, kind of what reliever is, needs to be pitching. And if it's a leverage spot, even if it's the fifth or sixth inning, like they're going to put the best guy in. And also like they've let Weaver go like 2 innings, right? Like he's going to come in the eighth and close it out. So I do like that. I like that Weaver, Kopech, any of those stud relievers that I mean, it sounds like we're on the same page with this. I would guess the series goes 6 games, probably
Mhm.
most likely. But so 6 games, they could easily get 4 appearances, and so
Yeah.
if you're looking at maybe a 10 or 15 average for that, kind of depending on how it goes, and assuming they at least kind of have one bad outing, that's 60 points. That's not bad. So the only thought with that is, Muncie does the like Pablo Sandoval kind of 3 home runs in the first game or something like that, and goes from there. And so I think that's the only thought there, is that in this lineup, I need to come from behind, and so Muncie can over Weaver, and I do think a lot of the top lineups are probably playing Weaver. It looked like, and honestly, if I was in first and I was playing for $8,500, I would for sure have been looking at like the galleries of everyone else I was playing against and figuring that out. It's not worth it for me at this point because I'm so far behind.
Yep.
So it's just I'm just playing what I can, and then I would like to win Rare Pro. And certainly, with the lead that I have, it's not, it's not something where, especially with a 7-game week, possibly I can't get caught. But this one matters a little bit less, just in terms of kind of what it means. It's just kind of, it's for pride, right? Like I would love to have a cool playoff card. Probably not
Well,
as much as you do, but like, yeah.
I mean, like, let's talk about that though. Like, obviously, the champ is the one that you wanted to win, right? Like,
Yeah.
that is the premium piece. But we're both in position to win Limited Pro. It is a pride thing, like you said. But remember last season, the playoff postseason cards are freaking awesome. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, the winners of these things, like the winners of the pro competitions, are probably going to get the postseason version of Shohei Ohtani. I don't know how they couldn't get that, right?
Right.
So you and I are already locked into a star, essentially, as long as we set a lineup. So it comes down to like which star postseason card are you going to get? Like I would be thrilled to get an Ohtani or a Judge, right? I think those are the options
Yeah.
to get. And realistically, I want to win the competition because it's fun, right? But I want that Shohei card. I want that Judge card. Like I think it's a really cool collection piece for a fan of baseball. And so it doesn't mean anything when it comes down to it. Like the reward is not really there, but I think all told, it's still something that you and I are going to focus on. I mean, there's a reason that I went through and I looked at everybody that could potentially catch me that was within 100 to see what their lowest score was, to see who was actually a threat. Because I know my lowest score is really low. So what that means is once I'm over 130, which is almost a nothing score, Kev, I'm adding to my total. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and not many people are able to do that, and so it's kind of tough to get that differential with one person like that, but you need that person to hit a massive, massive score. It's like that's the kind of like thing that I've been doing because, it's fun,
Nice. Yeah. So let's see with this one. Where am I
So
at?
what is
So
your
four,
lowest score? Like, what is your fifth best score?
145.
Yeah. So 145 is not high. So you're going to be adding on to the score really fast.
Yeah, I feel like when I've looked at other teams though, there's usually one or two,
Yeah.
somewhere between 100 and 150s for everyone, just because
Yep.
some of those were, such kind of
Yep. The Bobby Witt
slow
leagues
game
where he got
weeks.
0.
Yeah.
So, but
But
like, so I'm like, and this is what I did exactly. And then I went in, I looked at second place to see what their lowest score was, because that's when you know what your lead actually is, right?
right.
So
Yeah.
his fifth
So
best, so it's higher than yours. So
yeah.
like this guy's not really a threat to you.
I mean,
You
did
are
you
like,
did you see the other one that I'm in 14th place in, and I was in first the entire playoffs? I mean,
yeah. What
anything can
happened
happen.
there? What actually did you just have a horrible week last week and the biggest scoring
Uh
week?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I made the worst possible choices.
Yep.
So instead of playing Mookie and Stanton, I played. I don't even remember who I played.
Yep.
I don't want to think about it, Bob.
Yep. Shut your face hole, Bob. Yeah.
All right, let's see. We had Teoscar. And I played Flaherty.
Yep,
So,
so did I. Yeah.
so there you have it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
and
mean,
I didn't play Mookie or Stanton, who I could
so
have played, and I
let's
played
talk
my
about
other
this.
one.
This is a great example here, Kev. So your three reliever, your two reliever strategy has been working great this entire time. It's gotten you where you are. But on the weeks where everybody blows up, with all the hitters blow up, there's a peak with where you can get with there. And so like you're playing the floor game and you've been playing it very successfully. And then last week, Mookie and Shohei hit like 90, 100,
Right.
Stanton blew up. Like all of these things come together and then you're screwed essentially. And like that's part of the thing that you have to go, because that score is counting no matter what. And now you really wanted you need that week to be huge. And this is something that you and I talked about before that week even happened. Last
Yeah.
week, the LCS was really the make or break week to know who would be in contention to win these things, because you simply didn't know how long these series were going to go. You had to guess, you had to get lucky. Like essentially, you needed a lot of Dodgers and Mets, is what it really came down to in a lot of
Yeah.
places, right? And Soto, obviously. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, Flaherty certainly didn't help you any. So
No, he did not. But that's the game. It's
yep.
fine. Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, when it comes down to it, for my teams, I'm gonna run with Stanton. I'm going to run with Weaver and Rodon, and I'm just gonna let it ride. And I'm gonna see how it goes. You know, it's not the safe route, but I'm relatively confident that I can make it kind of work for me. I essentially
Yeah.
have what I would consider a 70-point gap. And what I'm really looking at is I don't think that people that are playing for the win are going to have very many differentials
Yeah.
to what you said before. So it really comes down to, can the one or two people differentials that someone else has, can they outscore me by 75 points with my differentials? That's what really
Right.
makes up the difference here.
Yeah.
So
And so if I was coming from behind, trying to come from behind and had unlimited options, I think Judge is probably the one of the four that I would sit and kind of hope that he has a bad series, and hope that, and DJ Local had mentioned Tommy Edman is one of those other guys.
yep.
That's an option. And yeah, and obviously in the NLCS, he did it as well. So, that's not a bad play. And that's just a guy that I don't have in my gallery. So, I won't be playing him, although I might have a limited that I could play. But I think that's the way that I would go. If you had to pick one of those four to not play, which one would it be, and who'd you replace them with?
I mean, I think it has to be Judge. I think that Shohei, Mookie, and Soto are too consistently excellent, right? And like, who knows? Maybe they have a zero kind of week, right? But I think there's a higher probability of Judge striking out 6 times and not hitting a home run versus the other guy, versus Juan Soto hitting like 3 doubles. I really think that is the main part there. But you have to put somebody in with that high potential. And what I am wondering about now is that there's been a big gap. Like they sat for a whole week of not playing. Is there rust? I know they're professional athletes, but we talk about this stuff all the time. Like, are the slightly above average players, like the Edmonds of the world, the Jazzes of the world, like, are they going to click on faster or slower? Like, does Judge take some time to reacclimate to live game? Like, I don't know the answer to that question. I've never looked at something like that, or if anybody actually has, for each individual player. I mean, you remember the Dodgers had a bit of a bye in the first round, and Shohei didn't get a base hit without somebody on base. Like when he was just him
That's
up,
right.
he was like
Yeah.
1 for 18. Like it took him a while to reacclimate to what was
Yeah.
going on. And like,
Although he was like 18 for 19 with runners in scoring position.
yeah, of
So
course. Well, I mean, it changes how you get pitched, obviously,
right.
but that's not Shohei-esque.
Yeah. And Mookie started like 1 for 21, I think, something
Yeah.
like crazy like that.
You can't, like, it's great that the Dodgers won, but you can't tell me that having a break doesn't affect guys negatively. It certainly does. It only really benefits the pitchers. when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
And the nagging injuries that like Freddie Freeman has, it's an extra week of rehab time basically. So, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen. It's gonna be exciting. I mean, for all we know, it's gonna be like a 1-0 game tonight. Like this
Right.
is what happens. So who knows?
Nice. Rock on. All right.
Yep.
Any other decisions that we need to make or talk about, or
I mean, I don't know. I think it comes down to a couple main decisions that everyone is going to make. I think that you, as the user, need to figure out if you need a differential to get you up into the next spot. Like you have to try to figure out who you think, and you can probably look at like the people just ahead of you, their past lineups to see the kind of players that they have to get a general idea of who you think they're going to play. And I
right?
think you can actually, if you really want to dig in, you can probably do some of that work. You could probably figure out that, you know what, everyone's going to play this set of guys. I'm going to go with Tommy Edmond here as my differential in that fifth spot instead of Giancarlo or Muncy or Teoscar or Weaver or Kopak or like whoever it may be. Because no one's going to play Edmond, and I need Edmond to pop. Like my whole week is on Edmond, essentially, and like that's a hard thing to do.
Right.
That's what this final piece comes down to when there aren't a lot of options.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to look at was prices, because it actually is kind of reasonable to add pieces, if you're in that position.
Mhm.
And again, certainly if I was still holding a lead in Rare Champ, I probably would have gone out and got a Soto to put in that outfield spot.
Yep.
Um, but but yeah, I kind of wanted to look at this year versus last year, because last year I think we saw more kind of prices rising, whereas this year, I mean, Soto is has been playing well, and on a team that was expected to kind of advance all the way. I think they were probably the favorite in the AL. So, but
Mhm.
he's down around $50, and usually during the season he's around 100. Now, certainly um, the I think. I think the soccer and NBA stuff kind of makes a huge difference for MLB. And I think for those of us that already love playing MLB, I think the stuff that Sorare put in place, I think was great. And I think we're all pretty happy with, it's worthwhile for us to want to play, right? I mean, like, over $8,000 to first place for Rare, for limited, it's like is it 5,000 for limited? That's pretty
It's
high.
it's pretty high. It's fine. I can't even remember what it is, but
Yeah.
it's once you got out of my range, I was like,
Yeah. But I mean, so there is that, but I don't think it was so much that someone who is prefers to play like soccer, or even someone that prefers the NBA. With NBA's probably got 5 times as many managers as MLB. I
Mhm.
don't think those folks were like, well, I'm going to put off kind of playing NBA because I want to focus all my attention on MLB. So I think there's that. I think there's the fact that people saw some of those prices rising last year and were like, oh, well, I'm going to hold these guys and sell them, sell into the rush of the playoffs. But then that didn't happen.
Mhm.
In part just because there's another, for limited, another 300 or however many cards out there. So the supply's a little higher. I don't think there's really that many more people playing this year than last year
Right.
in the playoffs. So there's that aspect of it. But I do want to kind of look at guys like Jordan Montgomery,
Mhm.
because I think he was one. But I think a big part of it last year, and we were just getting the tail end of it there. But like he, was twice as high. But I think with last year, it was, Rangers and Diamondbacks. And so for the folks that did prepare for the playoffs, they had, Dodgers and, last year kind of probably Braves, and who else were the favorites going into it. It certainly wasn't probably Orioles, right? I mean, they were like 100-win team. So, I would imagine the same this year, where if you were planning to do the playoff chase, like you've got your guys going into it, and so you don't need to buy. Whereas going into the World Series last year, you probably didn't have a starting pitcher, Evaldi or Montgomery or, all that stuff. So I'm guessing that's why there's a difference. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
No, yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I mean, I think that the playoffs are different this year because the two best teams, the two teams with guys used the most, are the ones in the World Series. This isn't a situation where guys that were not always filling your lineups have made the World Series. And the example, like, I would say that the World Series last year would be akin to if the Tigers, right, were playing against, say, the Padres this year in the World
Right.
Series, right? Like the Padres are like the Rangers from last year. They have a bunch of good guys that were pretty solid all year that you could use here and there. And the Tigers are just a team, right? And like that's what the Diamondbacks felt like last year. Like they snuck into the playoffs, they made a huge run. You realize how great Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte and Christian Walker and all of those guys are, and and Gino. So like, and this is kind of like what happened with the game. And because now I think that you're seeing a little bit of a difference in the need to buy and who to buy.
Right.
Because in that series last year, there were a lot of options that were not superstar options. Like all of the guys I just named, you could put into a team. You could also put Garcia and a Seager and a Semyon. Like there are different options that you had. There weren't very clear cut. Only one really good middle infielder, like in
Right.
this one, right? There aren't peak plays of like guys like are true stars. Like there are four of the top five stars in the entire game of MLB are in this series,
Right.
right? Like so it's different, and I think it's going to make it really unique. And like what you are betting on is that those guys are not going to be good, and I think that you're going to see a little difference in market activity when people kind of say, I know I'm going to have to buy a Juan Soto. I don't want to buy a Juan Soto. So I'm just
Right.
not going to, right? So I think you probably will see less market movement with more expensive guys. Whereas last year, you could get those Semians for like $8 at the end of the season. Like they were super, super cheap and limited. And so, yeah, it's just a different mindset. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that it's unique. I mean, it's part of the grind of what SoRare MLB is. And I mean, at the end of the day, like the fact that we are potentially still buying in-season cards for the last game week of the season is wild. It tells me that MLB has actually put together something good with their in-season. The fact that
Right.
you are willing to spend money, somebody like Dewey who just like passed you in rare, like if he doesn't have a guy, I can guarantee you he went out there and he bought guys.
Right.
Like here,
I was gonna say, yeah, the one Weaver that got auctioned off, or
yeah,
one of the rares that was going for like $150 or something like that, which I probably should have sold mine. Now that I think of it, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but like, I think I talked to Nate about this on Monday when we were talking NBA. But like, that's one of the great things about collections is that I have Luke Weavers because I had an old, I think Royals and Diamondbacks were the teams he played on in 22. And so
yep,
I had, two limiteds and one rare, not because I was like speculating on Luke Weaver, at any point. It was just, he was in there because of the collection. And so that, that is one of the things. And just, again, I think, if you're moving up from limited to rare or something like that. And I kind of do want to talk about looking ahead a little bit, but if you're looking to in the off season to start building, a rare gallery because you've only been playing limited, or super rare because you've only been playing, limited and rare. I think that's one of those things to think about in super rare. I don't, just because the floor is so high, it's $50 for an auction, whereas $5 for rare and under $1 for limited to be able to get guys on an auction is
yep.
a lot easier. um for that, if you're moving up to rare, though, like I said, I think building a collection is not the worst way to do it. Obviously, we see every season that early on, prices are going to be high. I'm liking what SoRare's doing with the other sports, with football and basketball. If you haven't been paying attention to that stuff, they've been doing kind of like little bonuses, whether it's Essence, which is going to be coming for MLB, or boxes and credits, or the potential to like buy one card and potentially get another card from that team as your bonus. And so you see people that bought a Andre Drummond and ended up winning a Joel Embiid. I like that stuff, so at least it's a little bit more worthwhile if you are going to play in season and you want to do that. There's because prices are high, but like certainly if you're building a collection, don't do it the first month of the season. Kind of wait a little bit until prices kind of get down to normal. And in NBA, a lot of those guys are already $1 at least. The rookies that aren't even going to make their NBA roster, where they're just on two ways or whatever. But yeah, so there's that collection aspect of it, which I love. What was the other part of it? I don't know, but are you looking ahead yet? Are you kind of thinking about next season? No,
not even a little bit. I mean, I have my strategy, right? And it's worked for this. Like what I have found is that I do the exact opposite of what you just recommended for everybody.
Right.
I buy my collection first. I build up my XP. I get it as high as I possibly can, so that Shohei going into the playoffs has a 18% bonus,
right,
on a limited card, which again puts me, at least in my eyes, way ahead of what anybody else can possibly do. I mean, yeah, sorry, he's at 16.5% bonus.
Nice.
So, so he's basically scoring the same as like your regular rare card, even higher than that. So I'm buying everything in the beginning. So I'm not even thinking about it. And I know that next year I'll probably do the exact same thing because I was able to return some money. Right. And so like you talked about hoops and NBA. And so I'm basically doing something similar with NBA. I bought a bunch of in-season cards so I can take advantage and try to make some money back in NBA, using my knowledge, using the other pieces the other tools that I know that I can pay for. So, and then this week, I think I finished in 7th place in limited champion, right? And I've already made back $85 that I've spent into NBA, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a ton when it comes to limited, when it comes right down to it, right? Like that buys me in a couple weeks, another top end card, when it's at it. So these are the things that I'm doing. I think that in season is such a great move for them that, I could potentially consider selling some cards, but I know at some point I'm going to need to, Kev.
Yeah.
Right. But I still want my bonuses on Shohei and Mookie and Judge and Soto to be high. And even when you lose the 5% from the in season, Shohei's still going to be at 12% when I go into next year. That's ridiculous because of the collection bonuses. So what that means is I'm basically tied in to a lot of my cards. So I'm not thinking much about next season because I'm going to, short of them changing the game drastically, keep the same strategy. I'm testing now in NBA to see if it works. And what I have found so far is that I am making more money playing baseball in NBA than I'm playing rare and super rare in soccer.
Really?
Yeah. I'm actually.
No wonder they're all so angry over there.
I'm not having as much fun in the football side of things anymore. I'm really, really not.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I'm just making changes. And, and one of the cool things, I know we're not doing an NBA show right now, but the introduction of the swaps and commons and stuff like that helps the baseball side to get this stuff done is fantastic. But NBA has a really unique way that they're allowing you to swap cards to meet and play daily kind of matches, which is fantastic. You can get a guy, buy him, and then get rid of him the next day and get new guys to fill in for a daily lineup. And so I got rid of a Wemby today in common to fill out a lineup for the daily. And as it turns out, the daily is kind of fun. I picked up 2-star cards. I won a Harden and a Jokic, all commons, but you still get essence. You get a couple essence here and there and you start building it up. And so I really like what they're doing. I want to see what they are going to do with MLB. I know that in the basketball game, if you use a card in a lineup, you can't use it in your in your daily competitions. So what that says to me is if MLB does anything like this, all of those cards I have, Kev, are going to completely dominate the classic cards in the daily or whatever game that they have because I'm already stacked. Right. And it's not like I only have one Shohei. I'll probably, like, odds are if I can win, I might have 2, 3, 4 of them at some point, you know? See,
Right.
I love it. You're putting together your daily hoops. Yes.
I was gonna say, I think that's the one thing. If I was, managing your gallery, I think I would just hold on to my cards, and because I think you're gonna want to be using them for daily. Like, it'll be nice to have those. There's like an actual use for them. Everyone kind of has always kind of complained about, like, so we're not giving us enough ways to use our cards, but I think they've come up with good ways to do it. And like I mentioned just a moment ago, I know there's a lot of negative sentiment on the soccer side, and I think that's mostly arising out of the fact that Sorare is changing the essence, like Matrix, right? But I think
it's more than that. It's a lot more than that. That's just kind of the build up. I mean, they have to change the essence, unfortunately.
Right.
Like, they didn't do their math well. Like, they really didn't, and they're going to fly. And so, but it's making the game, especially the classic game, feel a lot less beneficial. Like, I'm at the point now where I'm strongly considering selling all of my classic cards, even though they're like maxed out. I've had them for years, and the only classic cards that I would keep are U23 guys. And so I would only play U23 and like in-season Premiership. Like, that's it. Like, I simply don't care enough right now because I'm having more fun playing the baseball game, which I think the baseball game is considerably better than the football soccer game.
Yeah.
The addition of the daily game in basketball has made it a ton of fun. Now, we're only 2 or 3 days into it, so like we'll see how I feel in a week or two.
Right.
But I'm having a better time doing it. I have a set plan. I think it works. And it's just there are limits to which this game is going to be good. And I've been saying this for a long time, Kev, for the last 3 years now, that more people, like, everyone talks about, can't wait till Sorare has 1 million users. And I keep saying more people is the worst thing possible for this game. I understand financially it's great for Sorare, but it ruins the integrity of the game. And like, it's not the same. And they have changed football so much with the introduction of new people. They've had to release a limited scarcity. They've changed up the game structure, the game play. So there's multiple divisions. The game is so watered down now that when you win, you don't feel like you're winning anything anymore. And it's just like, it doesn't feel, it's not as exciting as it used to be. And you hit a certain number of people and you hit a certain number of years where you have so many of these great cards and then like everyone uses them, right? Like, basketball in a few years might be a little bit boring because like everyone is going to have like 3 Luka Doncic's. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the reality of what's going on here. Same with baseball. But these innovative changes that they made with the in-season, with the monthly chases, like, they made baseball so much more fun. They've made me focus. They made the game by far the best game that Sorare has. It's also the least popular game, but it is the best game, and you can still make some money if you are smart and you give it the time. And I think NBA, because of the low population, is still in that niche. Like, I don't like the way the NBA game is kind of built, but I'm having fun with it so far. Right? I've lost that love of the football side.
So, I've said for a while that I think they should dramatically revamp the game for NBA, and that the kind of cap-based system isn't ideal. Kind of going to an MLB style where it's, you don't just take the highest score, but you take all the scores. I think would bring some of that kind of variance where you're looking at 2 games of Tyrese Maxey versus 1 game of Giannis. But that said, kind of as you're talking through this. The setup for NBA does seem like it kind of positions the NBA well to deal with that problem with football, which, too many of the star cards. And so now if there are, so many Lukas, Luka goes from being a $200 limited to kind of like we see in MLB, like the way that it seems like So Rare wants kind of prices to go, which is, the
Down.
floors of $1 and $5, and it looks like for a star limited, like $100 is kind of like ideally where they kind of settle in. So $50 to $100 for like a star, I think is what you're looking at. And I think that still kind of holds. Certainly the changes with in season and classic kind of, I think there's a lot more questions now about kind of how prices will shake out, and over the course of the season, kind of how that gap kind of changes between the premium that you're paying for in season versus classic. But
Yep.
with that said, and I talked about this with Nate earlier this week, I would not play champion without like a real live MVP. Like, I think, if you're just getting your feet wet, and for sure, there's probably a dozen guys you could go with, but like realistically, it's like a handful, right? And
Mhm.
so I think having, as long as they don't, kind of uh, relegate Contender to underdog status, which is like, here's some garbage rewards, have fun, guys. But it seems like Contender isn't that, at least not yet. But I think that kind of does create a system that allows for that growth. But what I wanted to say in terms of kind of growth being bad, I don't think growth in and of itself is bad. I think kind of inorganic, or like kind of outside of kind of a stable growth, I think is the problem. If you get, if the users double all of a sudden, if people come in because of Gary V, or if people come in because, next year for MLB, let's say they, advertise, on the opening day, on the ESPN telecast or whatever, and they're like, buy a card and you have a chance to win $1 million, something like that. And they get, uh, thousands more people just buying cards, like that messes with it, I think, more than anything else. I think if the growth is steady as opposed to kind of having these big spikes and coming down, I think it probably is more sustainable. So I think there is that aspect of it. That said, I don't know how much they can control that. Obviously, don't do something stupid. And
Yeah.
um
I mean,
but yeah.
I agree with you there. Like, there's no argument from me on that one. It without a plan, unexpected growth is never going to work. Like, unplanned for growth is not good growth. You need to make sure that you are taking care of your old users and your new users. Now, I've heard a lot from new users that they love the game. What you hear from are all the old school people, the OGs, that can't stand the game anymore. Because they're used to being able to do stuff. They're used to having that lottery. They're used to being able to take advantage. Like, I had this good score. And like, and that's not the way it is. And like, obviously, there's a lot of people that will never be able to get past change and how it's going to work. Right. And like, that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
we all have to figure that stuff out, and then
Yeah.
we have to make a decision if this game is still for us. And more power to people that don't want to play. But you have to understand and adapt with the game, and not just assume the game is always going to stay the same. And
Yeah.
one more point, one real quick thing here, Kev. Do me a favor and click that gift box next to one of three.
Oh yeah. What's that?
No, not that one. The
Oh,
gift box.
the
Right next
gift
to
box. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is something I didn't even, have they said anything about this? There's like a daily
Yeah.
claim thing.
Yep.
And I don't know if it goes beyond 7 days. You start over, or is you
Nope.
just done with this, or?
You're just done. So yeah,
Okay.
this is something that they didn't do a good job of announcing. At least I
Yeah.
never saw something that I figured out on my own. But essentially, everybody, when it comes to the NBA, once you put in your first daily common team, every single day you're going to get more stuff, more cards that you can swap in and out. And then at the end of a 7 day period, you're going to get a box that could have essence or whatever may be in it. So this is something that everyone will need to do to actually start being more competitive in their daily lineups. So
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, the setup, and I don't know if I was a new player coming in how I would feel about it, because I'm always looking for things where the baseball things are, and that's not exactly right.
yep.
But you know, in baseball, the common swap is at the bottom of the, you know, kind of home play page, whereas in this one, it's on in NBA, it's on the um my club page, I think. Yes. All right. There it is.
So,
So it's stuff like that. But yeah, I've, you know, not knowing what the gift box is because it's not something that was there for MLB. Yeah, it's interesting. But I think that stuff will get ironed out. You know, in terms of kind of what you were saying, you know, with the kind of the OG soccer folks, you know, even if the game hadn't changed, the, you know, the universe changed, right? Like you used to be able to, you know, win a however many $1,000 card, right? And the,
yeah.
you know, kind of prices, you know, went down. You know, a lot of the price. And, you know, I remember talking about this early on when some of those big soccer whales were playing MLB, and, you know, kind of complaining about prices dropping. It's like, well, I mean, prices were high because it was speculative, because a bunch of soccer people came over and we're thinking, oh, MLB, like this is going to be bigger than soccer, right? And so, you know, the I mean, Rafael Devers, right? Like I feel like I'll never forget, you know, how much you hated what you paid for the Devers super rare. Uh, but yeah, you know, it's, yeah, if you paid 5 times more for your cards than they're worth now, I understand being upset about that, but that's also the world, you know. And you know, it's something that I always remember. Uh, like Steve Aced Out would say is like, oh, they need to do a better job of giving us great rewards, and then if it's too much, they can take it away. And I was always like, no, like that they're going to give us as little as possible to make us happy. Like, if, you know, and they're going to err on the side of doing not enough as opposed to too much. And I think that is the right choice. Like I like I said before, if it's not, you kind of can't unring the bell, right? Of if you put too many cards out there or whatever, or like values get, you know, out of proportion to kind of the utility of them. So, you know, but I always thought, like, if you do that, people are going to be so pissed that you're taking something away from them. And that's exactly what happened with the Essence, where it was higher and they're like, oh, we need to tweak this down. And it's like, oh, they nerfed it, it's the worst day. And they're this is what Sorare does all the time. They give us something and they take it away and they make it worse. And certainly, I think, I mean, it's been a roller coaster for y'all football folks, right? Because it's
Yeah,
been,
I mean, it has been, and like at the end of the day, like it's the game is fun. Like this is why I'm going to keep playing it,
yeah,
right? But my focus on it and my love of it has changed, and that's okay. You know, we adapt. You know, and now, you know, that whole lottery aspect. The reason I switched to U23, Kev, is because it still has that kind of like lottery aspect. Like if you win U23 at the top level, you win you could potentially win one of the three best cars on the entire platform. And that is still
yeah,
it's not worth $30,000 anymore, nor should it be, but it's still worth a couple grand, right? It's still fun to rip that card. You know, you win in season, you're still winning a couple grand. Like and like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And so like I'm okay with these things. You know, it's I'm
yeah,
adjusting to it, but it means that I just don't like my old cards as much anymore. And like they
right,
don't serve a purpose for me as much anymore. I'm just not enjoying it. And so like I'm strongly considering selling a bunch of them. You know, and that's okay. You know, it is
yeah,
what it is. You make adjustments. And like what do I do with that money? I either put it into basketball, which I probably won't do, or I buy more in-season cards to boost my chances of actually pulling in the cash on the football side, right? Like to buy those studs. So, you know, you have to figure out what your game plan is. And one of my big things like in the sewer community is like you always need to have a plan for how you're going to approach it. I mean, I've talked about this many times. So like we just kind of go with what we have, you know. And like if you don't have a plan, you just start doing things, it usually doesn't work out. I mean, and I'm about to find out in Silver MBA because I subscribe to a projections thing and I usually run the lineups the projections actually show. Problem is, I didn't want to do that today. And so now we're going to see how badly I get absolutely smoked and how bad my teams are. And that's
right.
okay. You know, this is a live and learn kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I think projections are going to be struggling, for another week or two. I think until it's real clear, because I mean, a big part of it is playing time, right? And like,
Yeah.
it's unclear, kind of, how minutes are going to shake out under normal circumstances. If a team is up or a team is down or someone's out for the night, you see all that stuff. So I think there's just not a lot of data to do those minutes estimates, and so I think that'll probably change in the coming weeks at least.
It's fine. Like I said, we live and we learn, man. We make the adjustments.
Yeah. Well, and again, this is all about expectations and about, like I said, I totally understand the people that got into football, 4 years ago or something that, saw a much different world. And now, I would be upset too if this thing that, financially was one thing is another, which is unfortunate because it is, yeah. And when it comes down to it, it's a game. And it's not something where any of us, I think, are going to get rich off of it. We might win a trip to the World Series or the All-Star game, which is pretty cool. But I think if that's what you're expecting, as opposed to winning a $20,000 card, I think it's a much different thing. All right, I'm going to check the chat, and I know we've got some stuff in here. Tyler B, what is going on? He missed the baseball portion. Not sure about Kopech Flex versus Muncie Stanton. I think the consensus amongst us would be go with Stanton. I think Kopech is
From
maybe
me, at
the
least.
what's that?
From me, at least.
Yeah, no, I
So,
think Stanton over Kopech makes sense.
yeah.
Maybe if, like I said, I was trying to hold on to a lead and I thought Kopech might have a better floor or something like that than Stanton. But I mean, Stanton's looked good. He's not chasing overly much. It seems like he's doing great. Jump Shoot says RotoWire projections are on the site now for NBA like MLB, so that could help with some projections. Possibly, I don't know. We do for MLB, we do use RotoWire projections as part of the mix of stuff that we use, but those are always the least accurate, the ones that I trust the least, I think. That's just me. I don't know. I haven't gone in and done a lot of the kind of research of kind of who does the best at projecting certain things or not, and what's most predictive and all of that, which we might do this off season. I don't know. Part of my off-season prep is going to be figuring out what I should be doing, if it's learning how to edit videos or learning how to write scripts for API stuff or whatnot. So we'll figure that out, I think. But and some of that I just want to do because it's fun. Like I kind of do want to make like video game YouTube videos with my son. Like he, as it is, like mumbles to himself as if he's on YouTube. And he's like, all right, guys, here's what we're gonna do today. Thanks, Willie. So yeah, so that bird. So that's part of the off-season prep that I'll be looking at. What else? Let me check the comments again real quick, and then I'm gonna start mumbling about some other things. Oh, NBA having rare essence and limited boxes is interesting. Is that something that they do in soccer too, where like one of the, and it's usually a very small one, like one of them is essence for the rarity up?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. We have not had that yet.
Yeah, so I'm guessing they're just playing around with that to see. And that's one of those things. I think, if they're not making mistakes, they're probably not like being creative enough, I would say. The balance is always not breaking stuff when they're doing that. And I will say the rare essence is like such a small percentage. I think it was like a 1% chance of getting some rare essence. It would be nice if there was a market for it.
Mhm.
Or if you could trade stuff in, right? If you could trade five limited essences for a rare and vice versa, that might make more sense. In the same way I think that people would like to be able to trade or sell reward boxes, and stuff like that. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure that how that'll play out in the end, but I think they're playing with it. And so for anyone watching or listening that's that only does MLB, doesn't do the NBA or soccer stuff, we'll definitely be touching on this stuff on the off season. But yeah, I think looking ahead to next season, there's going to be Essence, which is, instead of getting a card out of a box, you get kind of credits essentially that you can trade in for a box that definitely has a card, but you don't know what level it is. And so, I think like 50 Essence in NBA, you could get any card, and then maybe like 150, it's going to be a T4 or T3, I guess now above. But like cutting out the bottom level up to, whatever, it's probably 500 or something. I guess I could actually check this, but some higher amount to guarantee like a T1 or above. And so that is allowing Sorare to kind of give more people prizes. And so it's just kind of spreading out the prizes more, right? Instead of having cards and boxes or just even straight card rewards, you're giving out a 5% of a card. And so, kind of the better you do, the more of those you win, you can trade them in. And so, I mean, that's certainly coming. Multi-entry is certainly coming for us. And well, I mean, do you have thoughts on that? I know kind of some of the complaints I've seen are like, it takes so long to set my lineups now, which, when people were complaining about, not enough, there's not enough utility, not enough competitions for our cards. Now it's like, there's too many competitions, which is an interesting change, but I think that's likely coming. The way NBA is doing it is, I think, just 3 for everything. You get 3 entries for everything. I do think there will be I don't think everything's going to be implemented exactly the same between NBA and MLB, and certainly across soccer. I know like the essence amounts are different. I'm sure the percentages are different, all of that. So I think there will be tweaks to it. And I know, again, especially on the soccer side, there's pretty negative sentiment, and it's like Sorare, kills everything that's good and has no idea what it's doing. I do think, and Jumpshoot noted it's only 1 entry for the daily contest. Yeah, and I think that's fine, because depending on how that shakes out, I think it's mostly kind of like an underdog thing where it's like, hey, here's another place to throw your cards. But I do think it's fun. And thank you for helping me transition to that, Jumpshoot, because I was going to say daily's almost certainly coming to MLB. And so in terms of prep for next year, you're going to need more starting pitchers if you want to play the daily game. Instead of needing someone that's going to pitch once over the course of the next 3 or 4 days, you need a starter every day. And so I think, I noted before with Bob, with his roster, with his gallery, I would absolutely just keep those guys and have them to play. And so for sure, I mean, I think probably because they're cheaper, and I think more volatile, I've always kind of messed around with pitchers, whether it's relievers or starters. But like in terms of, I think guys get undervalued because their performances are down, and that doesn't mean they're a bad pitcher. And there's no reason to think they're gonna, have terrible games if their stuff is still playing well. So that's likely going to be one of the first places I start in terms of off-season prep, which I'm doing. I'm getting there for kind of getting at least an initial tier list out, if not a ranking. But I really do want to start an NFBC Draft Champions draft to get started with that. And it's so big that at times you kind of just need to do one to prepare. But it does seem like if you're doing a draft like that so early in the off season, I think there are certainly opportunities to get really, really good values, guys that are gonna, have a bunch of hype going into next year. Some of those I think you can kind of see ahead of time. I think there's probably pitchers again are going to be undervalued, guys like, I don't know, Robbie Ray, guys that are coming back. No one knows how to value Spencer Strider, who might come back in April, might come back in June, all that stuff. Like Sandy Alcantara, like where should he go? No one knows. And so probably not today because we're already over an hour, but one of these days I'm gonna kind of do a get ready with me video of me taking a look at the ADPs. I've taken a brief look and just kind of get an idea of kind of who's going and what range at least, but I don't like to look at that too much when I'm setting my own because I don't want it to influence kind of how I'm feeling. But as with everything, playing time is the big deal. And so trying to predict who's going to end up having playing time or not. And I think if you're drafting a draft champions team like that or doing a best ball, I think you kind of got to err on the side of safety because, if there's a guy that, we won't know until spring training, like if a pitcher is going to be coming back, in June, or, there's a ton of guys this year that were supposed to come back around the All-Star break, pitchers, and never did, so there's that stuff. But yeah, I think that's all I've got for comments. All right. What else, Bob?
Yeah, nothing else from me, man.
All right.
Nothing else from me. Just looking forward to the games tonight, man.
Yeah, it's been a tough week with no baseball. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having it again. What else that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. We're going to do giveaways. I of course didn't get the stuff down here, but I was going to see how many of what we have, but I'll be doing that. I think maybe we'll do that live. Especially if the World Series gets close, we can probably do like a watch party or something for one of the games. So I'll figure that out. But the giveaways are coming. So Rare FP merch, So Rare merch, probably some cards, maybe a collection. If there's a collection that I know I'm going to want to do next year, something like that. Maybe like the Rangers. Well, I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So that's all for us. Everyone that was watching this live, thank you. If you're listening to this not live, also thank you. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, I think we'll probably see you next week. Probably try and do a Monday one just to kind of recap the first two games and looking at where things are at. And like I said, we're going to be starting the prep for the off season and figuring out what we're going to do then. So yeah. Thanks for watching, Bob. Thanks for doing this. Yeah. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Best of luck. Have a great weekend.